Hey everyone, Crazy Canuck coming at you again. Today I'm checking out some of my slabs that I did. This is a thin poplar slab, and poplar apparently dries fairly quick. This one's only 3/4 of an inch thick, but I checked the moisture on it. I've got 2 meters. I've got this one. Gives a little bit more accurate reading, and I've checked it. I can do this one-handed. Looking at about 12, a little over 12%. When I cut this, it was mid-October. This is beginning of November, so 2, maybe 3 weeks ago, and it was 50% moisture. And until a few days ago, it was just undercover, outside undercover, and it dried that much. So I'm going to do something. This one's a little thin, so I'm going to try something new here. I've got this spalted Tamarack, which was kind of a fix-up cut. So it's a little beveled on one side. So I'm just going to cut a piece about the same size as this board, right about here, and trim it down so it'll fit through my thickness planer. Now the idea I have here is to laminate these two together and then make a charcuterie board or cutting board or serving tray, whatever you want to call it, and go from there. So I'm going to get this surfaced on one side. I'm going to get the other one cut and surfaced on the other side. And then we'll take a look at it and take another moisture reading, see if it's any different once I get it surfaced. So I'll come back when I have all that done. So I ran these through on one side to surface them. I think this spalted poplar is going to be really nice. And the spalted Tamarack has some really nice color to it as well. So I surfaced both sides. Now I'll do it, just give it a bit of a sanding to make sure it's nice and flat and get off some of these rough spots, and glue it together, clamp it, and then cut her down and see what kind of board I get out of her. Should be interesting. And the moisture, where it was just over 12% on the outside, after being done, it went up to 17. Still not bad. It'll dry out a little bit more once I get it all glued up, and by the time I get it worked out, it'll be all right. That's about it until I get this all smoothed out. So once I get that done, I'll come back and we'll get this glued up. So now that these are planed and I'm going to do a glue up on them, I'm going to try something new here. Our lumber stores aren't open on a Sunday, so I got this from Canadian Tire and Gorilla Glue. It says it's got a short clamping time, 20 to 30 minutes. So we'll give this a try. I was trying out another one, Beats the Nails adhesive. Well, it really doesn't. It's garbage. This was supposed to be a table, and it was screwed. And as soon as I took the screws out, it just all fell apart. So that glue is garbage. I'm going to try this Gorilla Glue on here. I'm going to get it on here and spread it out and clamp her all up. And we'll see how that goes. And if I had 3 hands, it'd be a lot easier. But I'll get this all glued up, and maybe someday I'll actually get a tripod for this phone of mine. So I'll be right back. All right, it's all glued up. Looks like it held fairly well. So I'm going to run it through the thickness planer, give it a nice surface, and then draw out my pattern. I think I'm just going to go with a straight board on this. Leave the live edge for some other small slabs that I have. And it's going to make a lot of noise, so I won't record that. I'll come back after I do the surfacing. So I'm going for kind of a rough design, a little bit of a handle there to take in that little knot. cutting it off short of all the damaged area. This is going to be for myself, so it really doesn't matter. I'm just testing glue and testing different techniques. So I'll get this all cut up, and I'll see if I can find something to strap this phone to so I can give you some action shots. Well, hopefully you can see what I'm doing here. I trimmed it down with the table saw. Now I'm going to take the jigsaw, just kind of make a little handle in here. And there's the general shape of the good whacking board. I think I might take this down a little bit thinner. Looks like it's well over an inch, so I just might run it through the planer a little bit more. Take her down. But the lamination looks really good. I'm actually going to take and we're going to see how good this lamination is. Got a piece here that was glued, and I'm going to find my hammer. And we're going to tear this thing apart, force it apart, and see what held and what didn't. So far it's looking promising. Look at that. I can barely get it apart. And there's a little bit of wood so far hanging onto the other bit. Oh yeah, look at that. That's what you want to see in an adhesive. You want to see some wood left behind. You want to see the wood break the bond, not the glue. So this Gorilla Glue is pretty good stuff. I did leave it 24 hours because I just had a bunch of other things to do. But yeah, I think this is a good go-to. It's indoor, outdoor, water resistant. It's good stuff. So I'm going to run this through the thickness planer again, take her down a bit, and I'll come back and see where we go next. Okay, I got her down to where I wanted to. So now I'm using a 3/8 round over bit, and I'm going to round off all the edges except I'm going to leave this live edge right here. So I'll round off all the edges and then I'll get to the sander. varnish really isn't meant to be fancy. It's just to help speed up the sanding process. But as you can see, this Tamarack sure has some nice coloring to it. And the Poplar, I'm sure it's going to really get brought out once I get some oil on it, or varnish. I haven't decided yet. Probably go to a latex varnish and go from there. So I'll get out the little orbital sander here. I'm going to start off with 80 grit, rough her all up. I'm not going to bore you with all the sanding. I'll come back when it's pretty much all sanded. Okay, got her sanded down. I took her down with 80 grit, and then I put 220, and now I'll just give it some water, get the grain raised up. Give you an idea what it's going to look like when it's done. All the colors. That's going to be some pretty colors. So we'll let that dry up and do a little bit of final sanding. And I think I'm going to varnish this one. I've got some latex varnish I'll put on. I think I'll drill a hole. I think I'll drill a hole in the end for a little, maybe a paracord loop to hang it with, or leather lace if I can find some here in the house. A little more sanding, a little bit of varnish, and I'll be right back. All right, I sanded it all the way down to 220. Put a hole in the end. I'll get a leather shoelace or something and make a little loop, just for something fancy and something to hang it with. Now, what I'm going to coat it with is a very thin semi-gloss. This is a latex varnish, so a little bit easier on cleaning up brushes and the smells and everything else. So I'm going to put a coat on one side first, then I'll let it dry and coat the other side. Nice heavy coat. I'm not a big fan of stains. I like the natural look of the wood. A nice heavy coat on here to give it a good start. First coat will sink in a bit. And this stuff is tough. I did a bunch of coats on a workbench I have, and it stands up to wrenches and all kinds of stuff pretty good. So this is really going to make this a nice tough charcuterie board. Just like that. So I'm going to let this dry for maybe half an hour till it tacks off, and then I can flip it over, do the other side, and keep going back and forth. I want to try and put maybe 2 or 3 coats on, let it dry, sand it, and then give it a final coat. Like I said, this is just for myself, so I don't care how much time it takes and how much it's worth, because it's gonna be mine. I got other wood I can make production boards out of. Now, the inspiration for this came from Thomas O'Brien. He's got a channel with a sawmill. Great channel. I'll link it below, and you can go check it out. And I'll come back after it's all varnished up here, and you can take a look at the finished product. All right, so there it is. It's all done. A couple coats of varnish, sanded it down, and then put a final coat on. So you got the Poplar side, and you got the Tamarack side. Really nice lamination. That glue worked really well. So that's it for this one. As usual, like if you like, subscribe if you haven't, and we'll see you next time.